So good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar entitled How Technology Can Help You Deliver a Great Customer Experience. We appreciate you taking the time and we hope you will find today's session valuable. So before we start, let me just cover a little bit of logistical details for you. So all our attendees are in listen-only mode, but you're more than welcome to ask questions on the panel or on the question side on the right-hand side of your screen. We will be setting time aside at the end of the webinar to answer those. And then you can also expect a copy of the recording and the presentation in the next couple of days. So before we continue, I would love to introduce you to our lovely speakers today. I have the pleasure to welcome Adrian Swinsko, who is an advisor and a best-selling author. Good morning, Adrian.
Morning, Charlene. How are you doing?
Doing good. Looking forward to today's session.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it too.
Alongside with Nigel Clark, with the Cloud Migration Business Lead here at SugarCRM.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. I'm Charlene Elisi, and I'm working as a Customer Marketing Director here at SugarCRM, and I'm joining you from the Munich office. So let's take a look at our agenda for today. We will first define what does actually customer experience mean, and then we want to share with you some concrete real-life examples of organizations who practice Grade 6 with the expert insights from Adrian. Then we will shift a little bit gears and look at how cloud technology is a CX enabler and an imperative for change, and conclude with breaking down the barriers to the cloud. And then, as I just mentioned, we will have time for your questions. So we are set for roughly 45 minutes, and with no further ado, I'd like to leave the stage to Adrian. At this point, we will turn off our cameras so we can concentrate on the content, and then we will be back on video in a few minutes towards the end when we hit the questions. Okay? Adrian, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Charlene. Now just turning my kind of camera off here so you don't have to watch me fidget around while I tell a bit of a story here. So let's start with this idea, like what does customer experience kind of really mean? Well, we know that this is increasingly becoming the battleground on which companies compete, and this has been around for a number of years now, and it's starting to increase to affect every different sector and every type of kind of business. But the key thing is, like, what's the payoff? I think, and actually what we see from research is that customer experience leaders, they take off. Now, this is an amalgamation. Some of these data points are an amalgamation of some of the things that customer experience leaders can benefit from. Different research sources show that they outperform the market by about 40% per year. They tend to grow faster and more profitable. They're 80% more likely to retain customers, and they benefit from much, much higher customer spending. So that's the payoff, ladies and gentlemen. That's kind of what's on the table in terms of customer experience. Now, but here's where it gets complicated, because many of the people or many of the initiatives that are put in place to actually, whether the big change or big digital transformation or big experience initiatives, research sources, including kind of McKinsey and many others, show that as many as 70% of all of those initiatives fail to meet their objectives. So sometimes there's this cloud hanging over some of the customer experience initiatives that they're not necessarily kind of paying off. And then the thing that we're starting to hear more and more is that many of these projects are being asked to increasingly prove their ROI, which we know that in many corporate speaks is code for an eroding level of support. And if you've ever been in a corporate environment and somebody kind of asks the questions like, so what's the ROI on that? What do we get for investing in our time and effort in that? Now, if it's not your project, then in many cases that can be code for, I don't like it, I don't support it, we should try and kill it. But that being said, the pressure to improve the ROI on customer experience initiatives is absolutely clear. It has to make business sense. It has to be able to clearly say, if we do this to try and improve our service and experience, this is how it's going to improve our kind of business kind of results. But what I want to do is that's the kind of challenge in front of us. What I want to do is I want to kind of like run through a few things that I think that companies that lead their fields on experience do, and they do it consistently kind of well. Now, the first thing that they do, I think, sort of as I alluded to just previously, is they have clear answers about the big questions. And what I mean by that is they have clear answers to the following question. What is their experience strategy? And also, what is their experience kind of vision? But also, just as importantly, also, how does it support the achievement of your business objectives? So it's actually aligned with everybody's, the overall business's interests. They also have to have an idea of like where it is now, a really truthful and honest idea of where it is now or where you would like to be, and also kind of why. How is it going to change for different type of customers? Will the change depend on the stage of their kind of journey? And what's the human and tech kind of balance? Because when the leaders in the experience space or experienced leaders, they understand these things. They understand it's all very kind of nuanced. And they take a very considered and very deliberate view about how they approach the experience. A lot of the time, this is driven by the next thing that they do well is that they really get to know their customers. Now, yes, they use data. Yes, they use surveys. Yes, they use analytics. Yes, they engage their employees. Yes, they spend kind of time with their customers. They do all of these kind of things, but they go beyond the data, their big data, and the numbers that they gather about their kind of customers, because they want to get access to the stories behind those customers to really kind of get an idea of a visceral insight into kind of who their customers are and what makes them different. There's a great quote that comes from a gentleman by the name of Alfred Korzybski, who was a Polish-American general semantics scholar, and he made the point that he said the map is not the territory. And this is what leaders in the experience space kind of know, is they know that the data that they have on their customers only tells them part of the story. It's like it's only the map, but it's also they have to go beyond the map to understand the territory, i.e. their real customers. And that takes work and takes time and effort. But that's what the leaders kind of do in order to kind of make them to differentiate themselves, to build that better understanding that's going to drive that better experience. Now, the next thing they do, and going back to the big questions, is they do things in this order: experience, data, tech, and they do things in that order because more often than not, I see too many people, too many companies being very technology led, and they end up with a tail wagging the dog, as it were, where they're like, oh, we'll get this piece of technology and this piece of technology because it allows us to do this, this, and this. But actually, what the leaders in the space kind of understand is they understand that they need to be very clear about what their vision kind of is and how they're going to try and get there. And when they've been clear on the vision for the experience that they want to deliver, then they can start to figure out what data and what technology they need in order to fulfill on that. So it's very much strategy and vision kind of led rather than kind of technology kind of led. This is all underpinned by also this idea that they understand, because they truly understand their customers, they understand what the basics are for the customers, and they make sure that they're brilliant at them. Now, the thing about it is that kind of the basics they're a shifting thing, and they mean different things for different sort of people. But what the leaders in this space also understand is that getting the basics right and being brilliant at them on a consistent basis, it's not sexy work. It's hard work. It takes discipline. It takes commitment. But they understand that those things and being brilliant at them are the underpinnings of trust and reliability and credibility, and also to build kind of really resilient loyalty with their customers, because their customers truly trust them and trust them to be there when they need them. The next thing that they do is they never stand still, and they're constantly and continuously identifying what I call these little bits of grit from the customer's experience. You know, that sort of idea when you're walking down the street and you notice that you've got a little kind of piece of grit in your shoe or a pebble in your shoe. Now, it's not enough to make it really sore, but you know that it's just an irritant, and it's the sort of thing that you'll remember, but and it will stick in your mind. Here's the thing: is that the leaders in this space, the people that really stand out, they spot those small things, whereas many companies, those things get dismissed as being, it's just, it's only a little thing, it's fine. What the leaders know is that it's not fine for them. And lots of those little things, they add up in the minds of customers. And so what they do is they'll continually identify all these little areas that they can improve and remove that grip from their customers' experience to make it kind of, consistently easy, consistently smooth, consistently simple, and consistently kind of engaging. But on top of that, they're also kind of like, they have this expanding mindset, because they also know that, traditionally customer service is such that when a customer has a problem, they come to them for the answer. The leaders in this space also realize that sometimes that the reactive service is just not good enough anymore, because with all the data and insight and understanding that we have about customers right now, is we understand kind of in large part many of the problems that many of our customers are going to have. And actually, if we're not willing to take the effort to actually try and solve those problems before they actually happen, or provide customers with solutions for problems that may show up for them before they happen, or just as they're about to happen, then they're not performing at a high enough level. Because here's the thing, and if you think about it, here's a basic example. That 25 different pieces of research show that between 25% and 40% of calls into UK contact centers are avoidable. And up to about 60% of contact center calls resulted because a customer couldn't find the right information on your kind of website. Now that statistic has been in, that sort of stats has been in place for like 10 years now, and people still aren't getting to that kind of point that making their websites and the information they provide to their customers and the self-service tools they provide to their customers good enough to be able to, to help customers help themselves. That's all part of being proactive. It's about thinking about your customers and putting yourself in your customer's shoes and trying to solve for their kind of problems before they actually start to come looking for you, because that means that they have to incur extra effort in order to solve those problems. So there's the bar that we need to get to. Is you need to become more proactive by nature. And here's where it's also get more complicated, because actually within all of that, you also try to make it simple, because research that shows from Siegel and Gale, the people that are behind a website called the Simplicity Index, they've been tracking what consumers identify as simplicity-led brands over the last number of years, and they put together a basket of these brands. And as the chart shows, that these brands outperform the stock market by more than 800% over the last kind of few years. The customers spend more kind of with them, and they're willing to pay more for it. So a simpler experience simply does kind of pay. They also realize that all of this effort, it can't just be on experience, but actually we have to be focused just as much on the inside of our business. That actually, in a mathematical sense, is that customer experience is a function of the experience of our employees too, and everything is connected. So they also know, the leaders in this space also know that they spend just as much time thinking about their employee experience and how they can facilitate that as they do on their customer experience, because they both feed each other. Last couple of things that they do. They also understand that over 90% of loyalty is earned at or around the point of purchase, and when something goes wrong. Now, if you think about that, that's supported by kind of like by research data. But if you think about that, that makes complete sense, because of that 90%, about 50% of it is earned at the point of purchase. And psychologically, what that means is that people are very focused on make my buying experience easy, make it make sense, make me feel right and good about my purchase. And that kind of, from a psychological perspective, that makes sense to us. The remainder of the loyalty, the remainder of the 90% of the loyalty is driven by what goes wrong. Now, psychologically, that makes sense too, because while we might have done something, we also realize that things go wrong from time to time. And when things go wrong, what we want to do is we equate that to risk, uncertainty, disappointment, failure. And that's where our almost survival instinct shows up, because we see that as a threat. So if somebody comes in, and particularly if they proactively come in and try and help us solve a problem, or help make it easy for us to solve a problem, then we feel that they're rescuing us, they're saving us. And that's why kind of those two things make us right when we're spending our money, our resources, make us feel right, make us feel good about it, but also help us and save us when something goes kind of wrong. Those are the two things that drive most loyalty. Not a loyalty program, not discounts, not anything else. Those are the two things. Make the buying experience kind of good and make your service experience kind of good. If you get those two things kind of right, then you cover most kind of loyalty. Then the final thing, they try and personalize everything. It's not just about marketing. It's not just making sure that you have a personalized email which says, "Hi, Adrian, welcome to our this, that, and the other." It's about everything. It's about connecting all your data so you understand the customer's kind of history and when they've kind of called you and what the sort of problems that they've had and when was the last time they bought from you. But they do it in a non-creepy way. You know, we need to understand our customers' privacy preferences and data and security preferences to make sure that we don't creep them out, as it were. So in total, those are sort of like 9 things. Now, I know that's a big, long list, but it's a complicated thing. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you 4 quick stories about companies that I think are doing great things in the experience space. And I want to show you 4 different stories that show the diversity of an approach that they've taken. So here's the different brands. The first one is called Big Ass Fans. Now, no guesses for what they might make. They make big fans. Now they're based in Lexington, Kentucky, and what they did a number of years ago is they appointed, it was the CEO, Kerry Smith at the time, appointed a gentleman by the name of Dave Waltz, and Kerry appointed Dave as what he called at the time a full-time customer advocate. And he built a team around him whose sole responsibility was to determine what their customers didn't like. They basically went out and asked their customers one particular question. They basically said, tell us, they asked them, is there anything that we do, however small, however slight, that annoys or irritates you across all of our business? And they took all those insights and they brought it back into the business, and they disseminated that knowledge around the different parts of the business, whether it's from design to logistics to engineering to service to sales to marketing, wherever. That was a central part of the customer service strategy and a central part of the growth. And check this out, ladies and gentlemen. It helped them grow from $34 million in revenue to a projected $175 million in revenue in a period of 6 years by doing just that one thing. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a big and complicated strategy or big and complicated approach to experience to improve it and have some massive impact. What it shows you, sometimes you just need to kind of pick one thing that you think is going to be really important and just go at it and go hard at it. Now, an example of that is the Wolsey Plum Center, which is they're owned by the same company, but they are a trade supplier, particularly in the building and the plumbing industry. Now, what they started with is this idea. We just wanted them. They said they want to make it easier for the customers to do business with them, but they also wanted to improve their efficiency and reduce their cost to serve. So what they did, they decided we're going to go hard on building up the level of our internal knowledge, because they work with a massive catalog of different sort of products, and then what they were finding, their customers were finding that different levels of knowledge across their different team members was actually kind of holding back their improvement of the service levels. So they built this knowledge base. They started with 200 seeded FAQ type of queries. But because they get all the people involved in it, this quickly grew to about 5,500 entries within a year, and now sits around north of sometimes somewhere in the region of 7,000 entries, and is growing at about an average of 30 a day. But here's the kicker. Their first call resolution, because they've built that knowledge base, has gone from 74% to 98%. Their customer SAT scores have gone from 80 to 96%, and NPS is now 82. The average time to train a new agent has gone from 12 weeks to 4 weeks. Employee engagement has gone from 34% to 74%, and they've reduced the number of service-related calls by 23%. That's just mind-blowing results, but because they focused on the one thing and they went really hard at it. The other thing so that's a really good example. Next example I want to share with you is actually a sugar client. This is Cortec. Now, what they ended up doing, they're specialists in software integration solutions for smarter building, fire, and security systems. Effectively, their client list and where they're at is mind-blowing, but they are building a best-in-class provider they're a best-in-class provider of solutions for smart building, fire, and security systems. The problem is, what they realize is that actually, if we're going to be a best-in-class provider of a piece of kit out to our customers, we need to make sure that if that any service and support efforts that we have is best in class. So the infrastructure that supports it. And what they also kind of realize is, in doing that, they were like going, well, we're building this big new technology platform, but actually our internal systems weren't up to standard. So they worked with Sugar to migrate to the cloud, and this has actually allowed them to rationalize and centralize the data, to optimize, improve their marketing, sales, and service efforts, driven new revenue, automate a whole bunch of things, and has made it just give them access to better functionality, and it's become really easy to use and easy to implement. And I think what it shows is that actually what they've done is that they've gone like, we're really good at the product that we're developing, but we also need to make sure that any product that we develop is backed up with the right sort of infrastructure, so that we get it, so that everything is kind of balanced out and not lopsided. And the last one, again, is a Sugar client, which I wanted to tell you about. And I think they're really interested that their home instead is in the aged care sector. Now, they're Australian-based home care business. They're actually a franchise network, been growing now for about 15 years in the US. And what they do is they match clients and caregivers to provide this really relationship-based care, which allows people to stay in their homes and not go to to care homes, but allow them to stay in their homes for longer. Now, what they realized is that they wanted to standardize and raise the level of the relationship-based care that they were giving as kind of the business kind of was growing. But they had a workforce management system that was in place, and they found it wasn't fit for purpose. And they needed to operate as a unified brand and with unified processes as things were, their business was kind of growing, and also to prepare for future growth, because the aged care in-home market is set to explode across many countries in the world as our population kind of ages. So then they worked with Sugar to actually migrate to the cloud, and because they built the CRM, they have a tightly integrated system of kind of ecosystem of products. With Sugar, it's kind of heart, and that's enabled them to deliver that level of personalized relationship-based care to people in their kind of homes. And I think with all those kind of different things, I think what's interesting is it shows you there's a variety of different ways that you can approach leading in your field. But actually using modern technology and migrating to things like the cloud is really, well, it's important, but it's also an enabler. And no change comes without making a change. And if people are still stuck on legacy technology, then actually they probably need to kind of hurry up, because the future isn't going to wait for you. But what I want to do now is I want to kind of pass it over to Nigel, who's going to talk about some of this enabling technology and how it's enabler for change, and how achieving that CX leadership, or rather what it's going to do, is going to help you understand that how the cloud technology that Sugar is providing is going to help you enable that CX leadership that I know you all want to work towards. So Nigel, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Adrian. Can you hear me all right, Charlene?
Perfect.
Brilliant. So what really struck me when speaking to Adrian over the last few years was his focus, not on increasing sales velocity, driving growth, or other corporate buzzwords. Instead, it's been about working tirelessly to get the basics right and improving customer experience. You can't build a house without solid foundations, and all too often we want to focus on getting the beautiful kitchen without considering the plumbing. Hilary Devey, an extremely wealthy businesswoman who revolutionized an important part of Britain's haulage industry, and famously on Dragon's Den, said, if you chase money, it will run away. She sees the bigger picture than simply chasing money, as when you get the basics right, the rest will come. Parallels can be drawn with the electric car. The concept has jumped into our consciousness in the last few years, and more of us are getting them. But why? They cost a fortune. They take longer to fill, with electricity, that is. They have less range than their gas guzzling counterparts. and they do exactly the same thing as all our cars. It's a metal box for getting you from A to B, but we all expect to be driving one in the next few years. The fact is, there is a bigger picture at work. What a car does is naturally assumed, but we as consumers are now looking at the bigger picture and benefits which go beyond simply what it does. For instance, the experience. I was lucky enough for someone to take me out in their Tesla, which could do 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds and without making a sound. Apart from being terrifying, the experience was like no other. Other consumers may lean towards the obvious environmental benefits or reliability of a machine with less moving parts. For those who are looking beyond that of the purchase cost, it's cheaper to run, has tax breaks, and they're future-proofing themselves against government legislation, which will ultimately force the change. Finally, those who like features and functions such as self-driving, automatic braking, and a plethora of other gadgets, the electric car represents the future. So what has the bigger picture got to do with Sugar Cloud? Well, there are many parallels. In order to provide your customer employees the best possible experience, you have to see the bigger picture. Sugar Cloud represents a highly reliable, universally available and feature-rich platform. You would no longer be building and maintaining the engine which runs Sugar. Instead, the application authors in Sugar would run, optimize and maintain it on your behalf, whilst partnering with the most technologically advanced cloud computing company in the world in Amazon Web Services. Like the electric car, you can see it as a tool for getting from A to B, or alternatively, building better foundations to secure the future and remove the headache associated with on-site hosting. I've been speaking to many customers about cloud, and a typical example of those who have started their journey to migration have said words along the lines of, administering the system has become more and more difficult, such as keeping up to date with the latest security patches or making sure we comply with the latest data privacy legislation. We need to offload this problem in order to focus on making improvements to our own business. Sugar Cloud does remove the pain associated with these types of activity. For instance, our own data privacy compliance in conjunction with GDPR or SOC 2 or SOC Type 2 for security means that we've done a lot of the heavy lifting, which you then benefit from. The software is automatically always on the latest version, so you can feel more comfortable that your security is up to date, as well as benefiting from all the latest features introduced. Once in the cloud, the running costs are generally far cheaper, as you don't have to consider things like infrastructure, servers, disaster recovery, failover contingency, connectivity, all of which are taken care of. So what is Sugar Cloud? Well, it's made up of 3 core components highlighted in the colors in the middle. For instance, Sugar Market, which is marketing automation or email marketing, lead generation. Sugar Sell, which is Salesforce automation, and Sugar Serve, which is for customer service. Each of the 3 areas represent a key element in a customer's journey, from the lead through sales management in orange and onto customer service in green. As many of you use the Pro or Enterprise versions of Sugar, you'll associate SugarCRM with the functionality you get predominantly from Sugar Sell, the orange section, such as sales forecasting, pipeline management and revenue generation as business came from. But in more recent years, we have evolved to become an end-to-end customer experience platform. The driving force behind this significant growth was a desire to see true customer experience lived out by tying together all the customer-facing facets of your business. For instance, a customer service agent is able to see everything which has happened from lead generation through to what was sold. Similarly, business staff are able to see and understand communications with service staff and make sure they're aligned. Having this perspective arms your front-facing staff with all the relevant information as and when they need it, and adds to the level of service they're able to offer to the customer. If you remember what Adrian said, loyalty is earned both at the point of purchase and when things go wrong. Sugar Sell and Sugar Serve play to those principles. Sugar Cloud is more than just software with infrastructure provided and managed. The software is optimized for the cloud and offers all the things you know and love plus more. This is because cloud technology has allowed us to develop and introduce innovations not possible on site. For instance, customer experience in Sugar Serve brings the capability of omni-channel customer engagement through the likes of telephony and web chat. Its integration with Amazon Connect allows useful features such as displaying customer details to service agents on the back of an incoming call. Improved self-service portals can become a complete repository of useful information for customers of yours who want to self-serve, both reducing the burden on your staff and improving customer satisfaction. The new tile view user interface allows staff to manage their workloads more visually and easily by simply dragging and dropping tasks when and where they need to be. Remember, as Adrian said, employees' experience is as important when it comes to customer experience. Likewise, salespeople can manage their pipeline by dragging and dropping opportunities. Through a single role-based view, they can see everything from communications to tasks and prioritize accordingly. These new views have introduced a handy way also of managing recurring business such as subscriptions. Real machine learning, better known as artificial intelligence, comes out the box with SugarCell by the name of SugarPredict. Using your data combined with its deep level of insight generates sales forecasts with a surprising level of accuracy. We know better than most, having used it on ourselves with about an 80% success rate. I wouldn't be talking about Sugar Cloud if I didn't give a mention to Sugar Discover. Like Sugar Predict previously mentioned, Discover brings new insights into your data. At its heart, it is a business intelligence and reporting tool, but it has one killer move. It does something which no other CRM reporting can do on the market, which is to provide trends over the course of time and not just present data at a single instance in time. For example, if you wanted to see average lead to conversion times over the course of a year, Sugar Discover could provide you with that illustration and allow you to drill into the detail. This is what we refer to as time-aware capability. Anyone who tries to create this data manually will understand how difficult it can be, which involves taking data from many static sources and then joining the dots. If you're looking for more advanced reporting than that found with Report Wizard, Discover is the next step. This brings me towards the end of this section named Cloud Technology, the CX Enabler, and Imperative for Change. Sugar Cloud matters because it represents the bigger picture of building a foundation to serve your customers into the future, removing unnecessary effort and introducing capability to optimize your customer experience. A Sugar Cloud migration can also be used as a catalyst for change. I just finished with this final slide, which is a quote from a customer of ours who really changed their business quite significantly by offering a great customer experience whereby support staff could really provide support as well as advice on the best products, such as outdoor gear that the customers could purchase, and it tripled their business in the space of a couple of years. So if you've all read that, I'll move on to the next section. This is breaking down the barriers to cloud. It's quite common for barriers, either perceived or real, to be introduced when considering cloud. I have personally seen many reasons given why people think cloud is not possible or shouldn't be considered within their business. For example, the company that has a so-called non-cloud policy yet runs Microsoft Office 365, or the company that says its Sugar environment is far too complicated to migrate, whilst other more complicated customers have successfully migrated, or the company that assumes that it's far more expensive than what they pay at the moment, so don't even ask for a cost. Most barriers come down to an understanding or lack thereof. I just wanted to discuss some of the more common barriers and what has been done to overcome them. Lack of internal buy-in often comes because other people don't see the challenges or can't put themselves in the picture. It might be that your system administrator is sinking under pressure of keeping the system running, whilst trying but failing in parallel to deliver useful configurations which support the company and its objectives. In turn, the business people only see the system as a necessary evil which doesn't deliver value or ever improve. This dissatisfaction and messaging works its way through the ranks, and when the idea of cloud is tabled, it's just seen as another one of those IT projects and doesn't become a priority. There is a certain irony about a common statement which we hear, which is, We may consider cloud when our next upgrade is complete. Stating the obvious, one of the key advantages of migrating to cloud is that you'll never need to upgrade again because it's always on the latest version. How can you progress great customer experience when your efforts are exhausted just keeping the lights on? Making a positive decision to move to the cloud is generally a corporate one involving a number of people. If you're convinced by the value, you have to bring others along for the ride and show them the bigger picture with the direct and indirect benefits. We can help you with this if needed. If management won't engage unless they see hard ROI, you can just work out your business expenditure on infrastructure, connectivity, security, human resources, and compare that to the cost per annum for Sugar Cloud, which in most cases makes a case on its own. If it's not broke, why should we fix it mentality would mean we were still on phones like these. This would make business less competitive and not offer an optimum customer experience. The apps you get on the phones today, incidentally, are cloud-based, and I would guess that many of you are already using Office 365. Security and data privacy is one of the top 2 barriers we hear. Sugar Cloud is arguably more secure than most on-site or even third-party hosting providers. Our reputation is built upon securely handling customer data in a compliant manner, as we understand better than most that our systems harbour personal information. Whether it be people, process, or technology, Sugar continues to invest heavily in all 3. We strive to ensure all bases are covered through the likes of GDPR compliance with its associated DPAs and SCCs or security, for which we maintain SOC Type 2 compliance through audits each year. For instance, a question I'm asked almost daily is where data in the cloud is stored, which obviously has GDPR ramifications. To inform as many people as I can in one go, all data is stored either within the EU, which is Frankfurt, Germany, or the UK, depending on which side of the Brexit fence you lie. Finally, reliability is important to some and expected by others, but our cloud statistics from last year put the downtime over an entire year at 5 minutes, which has an uptime percentage of 99.999%, so extremely reliable and helped by our partnering with Amazon Web Services. Another common barrier is perception of complexity. When some customers perceive their environment is too complex to move to the cloud, it generally comes down to 3 things, which are customizations, integrations, and workflows. To date, we alongside our partners have not failed to deliver a cloud migration for any of these reasons. There have been instances where the system has been bent so far from what it was originally intended that we have advised against or to re-implement. In these scenarios, it was picked up early in the discovery phase before any commitment was made. However, these situations are rare. As part of pre-migration discovery, we aim to identify any possible elements which would prevent an instance being moved to the cloud. We supply scanning tools developed to identify items which may need to be adjusted in order to work correctly. Once identified, either Sugar or your partner will let you know what, if any, changes are required alongside the service cost to make these changes. This may be adjusting some code in the customizations or converting integrations to REST-based APIs, for instance. The so-called cloud readiness activities are designed to identify, address non-cloud compatibilities in order to address and prepare your environment for successful migration.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, Adrian. I'm just being conscious of time. We will take a couple of questions and then we can presently follow up in person in the next couple of days. So let me take a couple. I see I'm going to read the first one. So how do we get people involved to own in and to buy in? Maybe, Adrian, that could be one for you.
So first of all, I want to say, Nigel, nice one. Tip of my hat to you for that. I thought it was going to be really interesting. But I also going to want to just make a comment before I kind of come to the question, if I may. I think the idea about people not migrating to the cloud is, if we reflect on the last sort of 15, 16 months, and all these, for many businesses, have had to move to a different way of working. whether that's remote or it's hybrid or it's distributed, and they're figuring out how to, whether they're back to office or there's like a blend of kind of working. It seems to me that being stuck with an on-prem solution solely is going to be a limiting factor in their ability to do that, and also how they kind of they operate, whether they're mobile or remote or in a hybrid sort of thing, and also be able to here's the other kind of key thing: attract the right sort of talent that's not going to want to be in the office all of the time. And so having access to that infrastructure that gives them that flexibility, not just to serve their customers better, but also to, as we said, to serve their employees kind of better and work out that sort of right sort of balance is really a really kind of important and crucial kind of like point. But in terms of buy-in, I think that's kind of the key thing. I remember, I think you need to, the bottom line is you need to talk to people, because I think the statistic that I reported kind of initially about the 70% of big projects generally fail. And one of the biggest reasons that they fail, particularly around change and transformation projects, is they fail to involve people. They tend to do stuff to people. They're like going, ta-da, this big thing, and then it just cascades down, lands on people. And because they're not consulted and they're not informed and they're not involved in that whole process, it doesn't feel like it belongs to them. They don't feel like they're being heard or kind of asked for their opinion. And I think that that's appropriate for any sort of technological kind of decision. You know, I remember talking to Carrie Duarte, who is a partner at PwC across in the US, and she talked about technology at work. And she said that it's fascinating that 3/4 of most executives at large organizations don't consult their employees when it comes to big technology decisions. And that becomes this kind of big gap sort of thing. So actually don't do things to people, involve people. And I think when you listen to them and you hear them and you work through their concerns and all these different things, you can take people with you. In fact, they've probably got a bunch of brilliant ideas as well. But you know, Nigel, you're in the weeds on this sort of like stuff. I mean, I'd be keen to hear what you kind of say about getting the kind of buy-in too. You're on mute.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen over the years, yeah, I'm on mute. From what I've seen over the years, it's just getting people along for the ride. Your most important asset is your front-facing staff that are really seeing the detail on a daily basis. They're seeing all the gripes of the customers. It's like what you said, Adrian, early on about just the company that changed everything by asking their customers what most frustrated them about them and making those changes. Your frontline staff are the best source of that information. So bringing them along for the ride and helping them create this, or using them as an asset of information to create that strategy, is often the best approach. And it takes a bit of humility, I think, on the leader's side to sit down and listen to the subordinates and take on board what they're saying, and then ask them what it takes then to change that. And then you get a lot more employee buy-in that way. And when you have a technology project such as this, they feel bought into it and they're more likely to adopt and run with it once it's there.
So maybe I'm just being very conscious of time. I realize we're like almost 5 minutes longer than we anticipated. So let's take a couple of more questions and then wrap up if you agree, gentlemen. And I hope our participants can hang in there a little bit more. So one is around how long does it typically take to migrate? Maybe Nigel, you've got a lot of experience in customers recently who have done the journey with us. Would you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. There's two real facets to migration. The first of which is preparation, and the second of which is the actual migration itself. So the actual migration, taking your instance and then migrating it to cloud, typically takes in the order of about 3 to 4 weeks. So not long at all, and that's for most customers. The bit that's a bit more stretchy and is really dependent on each and every customer is the preparation part. If we go back to the customizations and integrations part, if there's an amount of work needed to ready your environment to move to the cloud, such as just tweak customizations or repurpose integrations as RESTful APIs, for instance, then that might take a little bit longer. So you could be talking in the order of a couple of months, say, just to prepare the environment ready for the actual migration. So that bit really depends, and if we talk to you, we can quickly work out what the sort of length of time that would take in conjunction with your partner, and give you more accurate timescales on a case-by-case basis. But the migration itself, if your system is cloud compatible, everything's been customized in Studio, and you've got few integrations, or they're all REST-based, then it's pretty much just a migration, which is in the order of 3 to 4 weeks.
Perfect. All right. I think we can move on to wrap up for today. I'd like to thank Adrian and Nigel for their insightful presentation and for their time. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And then thank our attendees for joining us today, for taking the time, and also for staying a little bit longer than expected. Thanks. Contact us. Let us know if you have any questions. We're here to help you together with your partner of Recur where applicable. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. See you soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day.